So we're here today with Trang Nova, and she is in Australia, correct?
Correct. Actually, I just landed here yesterday after 4 months abroad. But yes, I am in Australia now.
Yeah, Trang is in Australia, and she is doing really fantastic things where she's used, I believe you've used a life crisis to transform your life and to help other people transform their lives. Am I correct in
Correct.
this? Okay, so
Yeah,
walk me
that's
through
it.
what tell me your story. What happened?
Okay, yeah, this is a whole story. So everyone buckle in. Growing up, I had the narrative of get a stable job, work hard, and then you'll
Mhm.
be rewarded with a good life. So I went to school, I went to university and graduated as a physiotherapist.
So that's like
And
a
oh,
physical therapist here in the United States, right? That's somebody that would help somebody get physical therapy at the end of like a surgery where you would help somebody with like a knee replacement figure out how to use their new knee or a hip replacement to use their new hip. Is that correct?
yeah, that's it. So it's the
Okay.
same thing just called a different name in the different countries.
Right.
But yeah, I was working in the allied health and sports industry as a physiotherapist, as a also as a sports and running coach. And I was generally doing well. I was generally happy and comfortable. And I thought that this was it. This is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Until one particular morning when I was 24 years old. And what happened this morning was I had gone out to go for a run. And when I stepped out onto the sidewalk to begin, I hear a crunch. And I'm like, what's that? What's going on? I look down and it turns out I'd stepped on a snail.
Oh no.
Now, this isn't the first time that this has happened before, like I've done this many times accidentally, and I'm sure that many of the listeners have done the same. But for some reason, this morning, when I had stepped on the snail, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I couldn't help but feel guilty that
Hmm.
me just doing my own thing, going out for a run on this day at this time, I'd caused such an effect on something outside of me. Like in this case, I'd killed something. And this got me thinking for the remainder of the run. It's actually got me thinking for the months that followed, because I started to see how much of an impact I can have as one individual, like how much of a footprint I have with every single decision that I make.
Yep.
And this got me questioning, well, how can I use my lifetime to have as positive of an impact as possible? I don't want to be having inadvertent decisions that are causing harm to others, that are beyond what I might even observe. Like in this case, it was a very instantaneous consequence that I could witness. But I started to realize that there was a flow and effect. Every single decision that I make leads to an impact that would go beyond what I would ever get to observe or what I'd ever even
Hmm.
understand fully.
Right.
So I started to look at my life and I was like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. Like
Mm.
I feel like I need to become more. I need to do more, but I just don't know what. And this is what this quarter life crisis, I call it a quarter life crisis. This is what this quarter life crisis was. It was me integrating everything that I was already doing
Hmm.
and then integrating that with who I wanted to become, what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And there was a big clash. I was like, I feel like I'm not doing enough.
Hmm.
So that's what catalyzed this whole questioning process and then a complete change in direction in my profession and in my work.
Okay. So what do you so I know where you were, right? You were a physical physiotherapist, as you say, a physiotherapist, as we would say here in the States, a physical therapist. So
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing now to create that bigger impact?
Mm. Yeah. Well, at the time, I didn't know what it is that I should do. I didn't know how to have as much of an impact as possible. And I remember asking my business mentor at the time, because he was helping me with my running and strength coaching business. And I was like, what should I do, like, to do better? Like, should I do activism? Should I start a non for profit? Should I do volunteering? And I remember what he said to me was so profound. He said, Trang, you want to make a difference, right? Well, you don't have to be on the front lines just to make a difference. Like, you don't have to be doing like all of the physical work just to make a difference. Imagine you're in war times. You can become a nurse and work in the hospitals to help the injured soldiers.
Mhm.
You can also take a step back away from the action and become the person who ends the war. And both ways, you'll be making a difference. Both ways, you'll be able to have an impact.
Right.
And my mind was blown because this whole time I thought I needed to be doing, the volunteering, the activism, but my skills that I had developed through coaching and through physiotherapy was through inspiring others, through influencing others. So that's when I stepped into like mindset, life, business, mentoring, and coaching, because I saw that if I could work with individuals, help them step up their levels of consciousness in their lives, help them create their dream business of impact, use their skills and use their lifetime to have as much of an impact as possible in their business through their vessel of service, serving their purpose, then that will create a whole ripple effect. More individuals who are thriving leads to a more thriving humanity, which will lead to a thriving world for all of us and for future generations.
Right.
So what I do now is I do mentoring and speaking for those who want to pivot in their careers and build their dream business of impact so that they can ultimately fulfill their purpose and potential. And yeah, I've been doing this now for 3 years full time. I transitioned gradually before that as well, and I love it. It brings me so much fulfillment. It's me serving my purpose, living my dream. Like I said, I was just living abroad for 4 months because I have that flexibility as well in my work, and I get to do what I love, and then hopefully at the same time have as much of an impact as possible and use my lifetime to leave the world a better place.
Yeah. You use the term get to. One of my best friends, she's in a space where she's thinking about this a lot. And one of the things she says is, I don't want to be doing all the things that I have to. She's like, I want to be doing the things that I get to do. I get to spend time in the morning journaling. I get to do these things. Like I get to travel. I get to, right? She's excited to be able to build that life where she gets to do the thing. So I love that you get
Mm.
to, right? That you use the phrase that you get to do it, that you have pulled yourself out of where you were and said, hey, listen, I can help you pull yourself out of where you are. You can do this too. You don't have to stay stuck in this life that you think you're living. You can pull yourself up and out and put yourself where you would like to be.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that you highlighted that because yeah, in life there are things that are out of our control. But
Mhm.
such a big portion of our own life is what we create. Or in other words, we get to create.
Yeah.
So even if it's a situation that may not be reflective of our dream reality just yet, it's still ultimately, a choice. And maybe we are on our way to where we want to be and what we want to be doing. But
Mhm.
how I see it is that so much of our life is a get to, like we get to do this because no matter what it is that we're doing, chances are there is someone out there who would do anything to be in a situation that we are in now. Or maybe it's a past version of ourselves, like a younger version of ourselves who once dreamt of what we are doing now, even though our dreams may be evolving. So
Right.
yeah, like we get to be living this life and we get to be experiencing the totality of this human experience, no matter what it is, I believe.
Yeah, I'm with you, right? One of the things that social work your life is sort of founded on is the idea that like you get to figure out, there are practices and there are ways I help you do it, but I help you figure out what it is that makes you come alive and how do you do that daily? Like how do you make that into something that you love to do
Mm,
and monetize it, right? And then how do you monetize that? Like how do you
mm,
create your dream career, right? There's a course on socialworkyourlife.com that like that we do that. Like, how do you create that? And part of a lot of that course is actually finding what will be the dream career, because so many people don't even know where they want to go, right? Like when you decided this isn't enough for me and I'm going to stop the war, basically, right? You're like, I'm going to end the war. There was probably a moment, if not numerous moments, where you, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about this, where you were like, I don't know what I'm going to do. How did you land where you landed?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question because I summarized this whole quarter life crisis and this whole transition in like 5 minutes. But it was a process of over a year because from that moment that I stepped on that snail, which by the way, side note, like who knew something so small could catalyze into something so big? But that
Right,
just shows that it's the smallest events in our life that have the power to create the most meaningful change.
right,
We do just have to stop and reflect on those moments to create that opportunity. But yeah, from that moment, stepping on that snail to when I finally decided to let go of physiotherapy and running and strength coaching so that I wasn't just working with people as athletes, but I was working with them as human beings. That was over a year because of what should I do? Plus the fear of, what are people going to think of me? What if I fail? Like, what if I make this decision and then I regret this down the track?
right,
So for me, it was such a long process of going back and forth. I was in this like mental tug of war in my head. But the steps that I followed were actually getting some support. And like I mentioned before, I had my business mentor at the time. And I had multiple conversations with him to shed light on what is my truth and what is my heart really calling for, because that was being muddied by all the fear, by all the voices in my head, all of the compounding expectations from my parents and friends and society. And what really helps the most, and this is something that I share with my clients as well, is a particular visualization process. And it's called the ultimate legacy visualization. And I did this at a retreat that I attended. And this visualization gave me all the clarity that I needed. And I left this retreat and after this visualization, knowing exactly what I needed to do because nothing else mattered anymore. Like, not my fears, not the expectations. I knew what my mission was. And what this visualization looks like, the ultimate legacy visualization, is dropping into some sort of meditation
mm-hmm.
and then visualizing the end of my life. When I am in my recliner chair at 80 years old and I look back over my lifetime at who I became, what I achieved, how I contributed, how the world looks like now compared to how I was born into it. Am I proud? Am I
Mm-hmm.
satisfied with what I have achieved and what I contributed and who I became? Like, how do I feel about that? And the first part of the visualization is looking at, okay, if I continued on the trajectory that I am on now, then how do I feel about that?
Right,
Compared to if I lived my highest life, if I fulfilled my purpose and my potential at the greatest level and I didn't hold back and I did everything I could in my power to fulfill the most magnificent life I could, how would I feel about that? And comparing the two, it became so
so obvious.
contrastingly
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
And the thing about this was, like I said before, I didn't hate my job, which just shows that, like, sometimes the most difficult decisions isn't when you hate your job now and you know that you have to do something else. Sometimes it's when you actually like what you're doing now, but you just know there is even more out there.
Right.
And then over a lifetime, over multiple decades, the the relationship we have with ourselves and how we feel about what our life looks like, it becomes even more significant. So yeah, I liked what I was doing, but by the end of my lifetime, if that was all I contributed, then that wasn't enough.
Right.
And I wouldn't be ready to move on because I just would feel like I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve. But on the other hand, when I lived my highest life contributing to, like human beings rising at the core of who they are and then creating ripples of change across the world, that lit me up. I was like, this is what I'm put on this earth for. I've got this realization and this awareness now. It is my duty to honor this and to follow this.
Right.
It's my mission.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a really powerful, it's a powerful visualization that doesn't just have to, you called it the ultimate
Legacy.
ultimate legacy. I've done one where we're like, you imagine what your ultimate, like basically what your perfect life would look like, right? Like what house are you in? What area of the world are you living in? What car are you driving, right? Because like those are all the monetary things that people value, but also like what is the work that you're doing and how do you create value in your life and how do you create a sense of purpose? Like what is it that you do that gives you purpose? What I really like about your visualization is that you're saying step into 80-year-old you. And from that perspective, look back. And does that path that led you to where you are at 80, like get you there? And when I look back, the things that I saw were really exciting because of the path I'm currently on. If I hadn't switched over to doing what I'm doing now, I don't think I would feel that same excitement that right? Because the difference between the visualization I was doing or I am doing is I'm projecting forward, right? And you're projecting back. And that's a fascinating technique.
Yeah, I found that was the breakthrough for me because previously I'd been projecting forwards and that worked as well because, when I was in school, my parents or like all the adults in my life would ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, what do you want your life to look like? And then that got me to a certain place. And then when I was projecting backwards from the end of my life, then that gave me like a different perspective that I hadn't had previously. And I found that really helpful because I think so many people they spend the best years of their life racing up the mountain, for more accolades, more achievements, more milestones, and they race up this mountain only to get to the top and realize that they'd climbed the wrong mountain this whole time.
Yes,
because at the top, the view that they are now seeing, they're like, oh, this isn't actually what I wanted. This isn't giving me peace or happiness or fulfillment. But then if they were to stop and even before starting to climb this mountain, to survey, okay, which mountain do I want to climb? What is the view at the top of the mountain that I need to feel this peace and happiness and fulfillment?
Right.
Then by starting at the end, they'll be able to just make a more intentional decision about which mountain they want to climb so that they can climb the mountain that is right for them. And sure, this can evolve over a lifetime. And it's not just like as simple as one mountain your whole lifetime, but it's like at any point in your life, imagine if you knew that the mountain that you were climbing at that point in time was the best one for you there and then. And then you can have that conviction to walk your path with your head held high, knowing that this is what I choose right now. Right. And sure, it might change in a year's time, it might change in 5 years' time, but right now, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. And that is what I found has been so helpful because, it gives me that conviction and that intention in what it is I'm doing.
Right. So what are some areas that you think that you're really good at coaching people in? Like what are like when they're looking at the mountain, hold on, I got something in my throat. Oh boy, I don't have any water next to me either. Um, when you're looking around at like people who are trying to break into certain areas or doing certain kinds of work, like who do you think like the person that you think when you're doing this, how do I want to phrase this? Because is it one specific kind of mountain that you work with, or is it like anybody, like let's say you're working with me and I decide that my mountain is I want to own a store,
Mhm.
right? But then you're working with somebody else whose mountain is they want to use an example you said earlier, like a nurse, they want to be a nurse, right? Like,
Mhm.
does it matter what mountain they decide they want to climb? Or is it like how do you yeah, I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
No, I completely hear what you were saying, and yeah, that makes sense. I so how I do things is I work in, I would say, in a relatively comprehensive way. So what I mean by that is I love to work with people at the core of who they are
Hmm.
and look at the fundamentals of the journey that might not necessarily be the exact specifics of the external, but I will like go into in a moment like some common themes of who it is that I work with, just simply based on my experiences.
Yeah, yeah.
So like the areas that I am most confident and I found that my strengths are in coaching and mentoring people is one, helping them get clear on their purpose. So through that ultimate legacy visualization, as well as other coaching prompts along the way, getting
Yep.
clear on their purpose and their mission and their path, and then actually developing the deep rooted confidence and the worth to make that pivot, change careers, or to start their business.
Right.
So that deep self-worth, which is something that I struggled with for a long time. It's funny, last year I posted a reel on Instagram, and it's a reel that has it's the reel that's done the best. It went viral. I think like it's got like 2 million views or something. And it was as simple as me dancing in a taco suit. Like this is a reel of me dancing in a taco suit. But the point of that reel was to show that I can do both. You know, I can be speaking and running my business, but also dance in a taco suit. And that was to showcase the confidence and the authenticity that I really believe in.
Hmm.
And that is something that holds most people back. You know, I with so many calls that I have with different people asking themselves, you know, what is holding you back the most? Like I'm going to say 80 to 90% of them talk about how their lack of confidence is what holds them back. Because yeah, like if we don't truly believe that we can achieve something, then why would we pursue it in the first place, let
Right.
alone allow ourselves to persist at it to even achieve it in our life? So developing that confidence, the self-worth, the ability to express yourselves authentically, and then also developing the high performance habits, like the rituals, the routines that are required to develop a thriving business of impact in today's world.
Right.
So those are my areas, those are my strengths. And what I often find is people who come to me are like working professionals, and that can be like in the world of health, which is where I was working, and that's the people who I attract the most.
Right.
But working professionals could be in corporate, like accounting, especially in the first like 5 to 8 years in the workforce, and then going through that questioning process of, is there more out there for me? Like
Right.
I feel
Did I
like
make a
there is more.
mistake by all of the studying and all of the work and all of the interns and all of the things that I have done to get myself into this space, which is definitely how I felt when I was teaching. Like I made a mistake. Like, and now I just have to
Mm,
live in this mistake of my life. And
yeah.
what you're saying, Trang, I'm going to say your name again, Trang Nova, so people can find you, is that no, you didn't necessarily make a mistake. It's all part of the process. but you don't have to live in that either.
Absolutely. That is so beautifully said. Like, I don't believe that there are mistakes, because every step along the way builds on from the other and creates this magical chapter of our life that we got to experience and we got to live and to learn from and to develop from. And because I don't even see life as a race or as a linear process, there is no mistakes. It's just like each chapter of our life has its own value that we got to observe and witness and experience. But yeah, it can feel like a mistake when we spent so many years in uni or so many years in the workforce building up in one direction, and then we're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to start all over again and tear that all down and then go in a completely different direction.
Exactly.
And I get that that is so freaking scary. Like
Yeah.
it's very intimidating. It's like we're standing at the bottom of Mount Everest and we're like, oh my God, looking at the top of the summit, being like, we had to go from here to here. Like, where do we even start?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just like anything else in life, every journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step.
Right. It's the
And
same, it's the same cliche about how do you eat an elephant? Do you know how you eat an elephant?
I've heard this. Is there something about like cutting it up and eating it one piece at a time?
Yes. Yes, it's
As
exactly right.
brutal as that
Yeah.
sounds.
As brutal as that is, but especially with your snail story, it's totally brutal. But yeah, it's the same thing. Like, if you're going to eat an elephant, you have to do it one bite at a time. It's a colossal undertaking, right? And I feel like a
Yeah.
journey of 1,000 miles like starts with a single step has become something we don't really think about, right? But it's like the same. There was a guy who ate a car. I don't know if you know about this. There was a guy who ate a car, and
No? Please
again,
tell me more.
I think he ate a car, and I think it's the same way. Like, he just like ate it like one bite at a time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, unless that was like a not a thing. Man, eat. I'm gonna Google it real quick.
Yeah, we need to fact check this.
Yeah, yeah. I thought there was, because I don't really. Yep, there's a guy in Atlanta from May of 2018 who's eating a car.
Is he still eating it
I
5 years
don't
later?
know if
Like,
he's
I want
still
to know.
eating it.
I want to
There
know
is a
this now.
man. There is a man out there who's eating. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. There are a couple of them out there who are. Yep. If you Google it, it exists. People are eating cars. Not necessarily the most brilliant of moves, but like, it's the same thing. Like, it feels impossible when you're staring down the barrel of, can I do this? And there are so many thoughts that you have in your head that can be barriers and blockages to creating the life you love. And I love that, Trang, you are like stepping in and saying, let me help you get to where you want to be, so you feel alive, you feel empowered, you feel authentic, you feel like you're doing exactly what you were meant to do, and makes your soul sing.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Kim. Like, it's something that I genuinely I feel like I fell into it, in that, I didn't force this, I didn't plan this. This was my journey. I went from being in the allied health industry to having this quarter life crisis, which, by the way, was really an awakening. It led to so much, and I'm so grateful for that experience. And then, doing the mentoring and the speaking that I do now, and it just feels so empowering. It feels so good, and that's why I would love to gift others that same level of empowerment, because honestly, like, there's nothing that special about me, and if I can do it, then anyone can.
Right.
Like, I came from a background of no business. My parents, my grandparents, like, there's no business skill or um like drive in my family. I'm the first one in my entire family lineage to be running my own business and doing it full time while traveling. So if I can do it, it's like you can too. But as we were speaking about before, don't worry about the summit of the volcano. Don't worry about the car. Don't worry about the elephant. Like, understand that that is the ultimate end goal. Like, we want to know the path that we are going down. We want to know the direction that we are heading in, so that we can stay on track. But we don't need to hold on to that with a tight grip and let that overwhelm us day to day. Day to day, all we need to think about is that one bite, that one step. And that brings me to a quote that I love sharing because it made such an impact on me, is that remembering that significant results come from the insignificant things that we do daily.
Mhm.
Significant results come from the insignificant things that we do daily. So, like the small things that don't feel like they are that much. And maybe it's like the 10 minutes of meditation, the 20 minutes of journaling, the half an hour of working on our business each day. It doesn't seem like much, but it is everything.
Mm.
And this is the trick as well, because it's so small. It's so easy to do. Like what's less than half an hour of business work a day? Like we have that time if we really wanted to make that time. It's so easy to do that it's just as easy not to do, because we tell ourselves, oh, it's just 15 minutes, it's just 20 minutes, it's just a small thing every day. It's not that important. I'm a little bit busy, I'm a little bit tired, I'll just do it tomorrow.
Right.
Let's do it next week. And then we put it off enough times that suddenly we're not being consistent with it and we're not doing it regularly enough to create these significant achievements at the end of it all.
Right.
So it's the insignificant things that are actually very significant. And that's why I believe that we need to take these small habits and these small commitments or promises that we make to ourselves very seriously. Like we need to be very diligent with these small things, even more than the big things, because the small things lead to the big things. And if we can't even honor our own commitments or take the small things seriously, then how are we going to be able to do that with the big things?
Agreed. 100%.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. Trang, thank you so much for being here today. I think it's
Oh,
a really
Kim,
great place to stop. I think you're yeah, that so powerful. Thank you so much.
Kim, thank you so much for having me on the show and giving me the opportunity to have this conversation with you and share this message and spread this ripple of empowerment.
Yeah, great. I wish you amazing. I wish you the ability to travel for 6 months or 9 months or a whole year in the future, right? If that's the dream and the desire. Um,
Mm,
and I wish you all like growth, right?
yeah, thank you. And I really hope that this conversation was helpful and valuable for the listeners. So, yeah, thank you
Yeah.
again.
Thank you. Okay.